Welcome. I'm Jack Mitchell. I work at the California Department of Education. I'm the Arts, Media, and Entertainment Industry Sector Lead. And just a little background, most of you were at the general session where I talked about CTE, about the CTE industry sector, and the fact that we are the fastest growing industry sector in career technical education. 2 years ago, Lee Murdoch, who had been involved in CTE for a long time at the department, said California CTE would be closing if it wasn't for arts, media, and entertainment. So many of the other industry sectors were going down in enrollment that the only bright spot in California was the arts, media, and entertainment industry sector. And in fact, we have grown far more rapidly than any other industry sector without a lot of financial support. You realize that ag programs have ag incentive grants, and so every ag program in the state of California gets, somewhere between $80,000 and $120,000 of ag incentive money. In the arts, we have zero incentive money. Health careers. There are, I think, 30 schools around the state that get an additional $100,000 to build their programs, to build capacity. Okay, and the capacity they built has gone from 55,000 students to 68,000 students. Okay, so we are growing really rapidly, and I feel really good about that because I think that, I dealt with a lot of kids who weren't successful in school, and I was one of those kids who wasn't successful in school, except in my classes where I got to get out of my seat. And so as a teacher, people would always say to me, how do you get Ed to do anything? And I say, he doesn't have to do it from his seat. He can get up and move. He can build something. He can use his hands. He can take what he knows and put it into action. And with this growth, with this explosion of growth, and especially in areas like game design, come problems. One of the things about about agricultural education is that almost everyone who teaches ag education in the state goes to one of 4 schools in the state. That's where they offer that credential. And you can't teach in an ag program without an ag credential. Okay? In arts, media, that limits the number of students, by the way. That inhibits their growth. In the arts, we are a sort of student-driven growth organization in arts, media, and entertainment. We have kids who are clamoring for these classes, and principals who are struggling to figure out how they're going to get teachers in those classrooms. And so for me and for a couple of other industry sectors at the Department of Education, teacher credentialing is a critical issue and becoming more critical as we begin to add more students to pathways without a credentialing system to support those teachers. So who's teaching arts, media, and entertainment classes in California? Well, we have a number of teachers who have a career technical education credential. It used to be called a designated subjects credential. And there were at one point 172 designated subjects that teachers could be credentialed in. In 2012, a friend of Arnold Schwarzenegger's wanted to teach as in engineering, and he didn't want to go through all the steps he had to go through. And so Arnold talked to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing and said, we need to simplify this process. We don't want 172 credentials out there. We're going to reduce this to 15 credentials. And so there is now a career tech ed credential in each of the industry sectors, period. So those of us who had school experience said, what? What? So I am an arts, media, entertainment credential teacher. And that means that technically I can teach a choreography class. So we said, how about pathways? What if we credential people at least by pathways? That would mean we'd go from 172 to about 76. Because if you look at all of the industry sectors and the pathways in each sector, it could be reduced. But they said, no, we're sticking with 15. And so we now have a really unique credentialing process in California for career technical education. And so a lot of the times, the folks in arts, media, and entertainment are identified as out of compliance. School districts are out of compliance, and teachers are identified as misassigned. I was teaching one day at University High School, and the vice principal came into my classroom and said, Jack, I'm taking your classes for the rest of the day. You have to go down to Beaudry, which is the big tall building where LA Unified is housed, and sign a waiver because they're saying that you're not credentialed to teach stagecraft, advanced stagecraft, because you need a CTE credential to do that. I'm a single subject English credential teacher. So that obviously urged me to get my CTE credential. But this is happening more and more, and I get a lot of calls at the department of people who are being contacted by their districts saying that they're no longer going to be allowed to teach the class because they don't have the appropriate credential. So that's a major issue that is happening now. Another major issue is that Perkins funding is tied to CTE credentialing. And there was a time, Chris can tell you, sat in the room when our division director, Russ Weichel, said, you don't need to hold a credential, you need to qualify for the credential. You need to have the industry experience in your background, and you need to qualify for a CTE credential, and you can teach a CTE class. You can use Perkins money to support a CTE class. Well, Russ was the manager of the Perkins unit at that time and soon became the division director. And once he became division director, the rule changed. And so the rule now is that if you're using Perkins funding for a course, the teacher must be CTE credentialed. They have to actually hold the credential, the preliminary. They don't have to hold a clear credential, but they have to hold a preliminary credential. And so this has created a problem because CTE credentialing programs were set up in a particular way. They were set up primarily when the ROP system was in full swing. And so each county office offered an option for completing a CTE credential. You could get your preliminary, and then the counties offered the coursework that was required to clear your credential. When the downturn hit and there were not a lot of CTE classes were going south, a lot of the county offices closed those programs because they were costly to run. You had to hire teachers, whether you in every industry sector, whether you had 6 teachers, prospective candidates, or you had 50 prospective candidates. And so a lot of the programs that were available, there was a program in every county office. Now they're only available in those programs that have found their credentialing programs profitable to run and have figured out how to do that. So that again has created a problem. Here we have more and more teachers coming into our industry sector. We have more and more teachers who are interested in getting a CTE credential, whether they are a single subject VAPA teacher, a music or a visual art teacher, or an English or PE teacher. We have more teachers wanting to get the single subject credential, and it's becoming harder and harder to find those programs. So one of the things that we're doing is trying to figure out how to make this system work, how to solve this problem. And one of the issues with bureaucracy that most of you, I'm sure, are aware of is that there are a lot of good solutions out there, but it takes a long time to run them through the system. One of the solutions that we're talking about right now that has some legs is the possibility of doing a supplemental credential in career technical education. Putting together a CSET test, I think it's called, that deals with the career piece. So if I am a music teacher, like Kenny, if you were here earlier, and I want to get a CTE credential, I verify my industry hours, and I take the test, and if it demonstrates that I have a clear understanding of CTE standards, that of industry practice, that I can get a supplemental, like I would get a supplemental to a credential in any other content area. Now, to me, that seems like a very reasonable solution, and a solution that I think a lot of teachers could live with. But there is pushback from the traditional career tech ed community, from the voc ed community, and especially from those industries that have a qualifying credential. There are five single subject credentials in career technical education: agriculture, home economics, business, ICTE, which is technical skills, and another one. There's one other. Industrial arts at ICT. Anyway, those folks have a single subject credential. They don't have issues with highly qualified. They are allowed to teach CTE courses without any demonstration of industry experience. I can be a business teacher, study business at Cal State Northridge, get my teaching credential, and I am automatically considered ready to teach CTE classes, whether or not I've ever worked in business. The same is true in agriculture. The same is true in home economics. But in arts, media, and entertainment, and in a number of the other industry sectors, you have to demonstrate industry experience. Our industry sector is not the only one that deals with this. Project Lead the Way courses. How many of you have Project Lead the Way or have heard of Project Lead the Way? Okay, these are courses that are generally taught by math teachers or science teachers. Okay, and again, now that the rule is in place that they have to hold a CTE credential, a lot of these folks who've used Perkins money to support their Project Lead the Way for years are no longer able to do so. So these teachers are scrambling as well. Health careers. A lot of the health careers courses are taught by science teachers because a health credential is not a CTE credential. A health credential covers the subject matter of health. You don't have to have any experience to get a credential in health. Okay, so a lot of people think, well, I have a teacher here who has his health credential. He's qualified to teach CTE. Not unless he's worked in industry, and not unless he has a CTE credential in health careers. So we're not the only ones who are struggling with this. So what I did, and I'd like to move this to a more conversational session, because I know that the problems that you have are not general problems, they're specific problems if you have problems. And what I find more and more is that the problems that are called into the department have to be addressed case by case, because everyone's problem is a little bit different. But I put together the one-pager that I shared with you, and basically it talks about the process that you need to go through to get a CTE credential. Anyone did not get handouts? Okay, we can come on up, I'll set them on the edge. And so it says CTE candidates in arts media, get a credential in arts, media, and entertainment must have 3,000 hours of work experience in the sector pathway. Okay, that's pretty daunting. But you need to realize that there are some exceptions. When they say work experience, that does not mean paid work for a company. You can, if you work at your school, and especially if you get a bonus for creating the graphics posters for your school plays or the yearbook, you can count that as towards your 3,000 hours. The other thing is, if you are a major in the content area that you're teaching in, if you're a dance major and you are teaching dance classes and you're getting your arts, media, entertainment credential in dance, 1 year of that 3,000 hours is taken care of by having a degree in the area in which you're going to teach. Okay, so the other thing is if you have taught a CTE course for a year, you get another year off. So essentially the bottom line is that you have to have 1,000 hours working in the industry sector. Yes?
So I teach yearbook and I do photography for all of our after-school events. Does that count as the 1,000 hours, or does that go towards? That counts as
the 1,000 hours.
Okay.
Okay, but it's not 2,000 hours. You don't get it for each class. You get it for work. That's considered work in the industry sector. Okay, now the work in the industry sector also can be, what do they call it? Avocational. You can, if you volunteer to do lights for a community theater, and you do that regularly, verifying that work, whether or not you were paid, qualifies as industry experience. The whole issue comes up for me of why is this industry experience important? I mean, is that just a hoop to jump through? It really isn't a hoop to jump through. Your job as a career tech ed arts teacher is to get those kids ready to work in industry. And if you went directly from the classroom in post-secondary to the classroom in secondary, you're missing a big piece of the career piece. I talked a lot to people about the schooling that I went through, and it was not career preparation. You know, I told the people earlier, I went to 2 schools that were supposed to be professional schools, but there was no career preparation provided. And so if I were to have gone into the classroom with just that experience, I could have taught students how to analyze script and to write script and to work as a performance ensemble. But I couldn't have talked to them about how to get their resume out there and who were the unions that covered them and what were some specific job experiences that made it necessary for you to understand these pieces. And so that career piece is really important. And I use an example from health careers. I went to Enox High School to study, to view their SSP or their CPA. And they had a teacher, they had 2 teachers teaching forensics. They had a forensics pathway. One of those teachers was a highly qualified biology teacher. That person, they were a successful biology teacher at the school. The other teacher was a biology teacher at the school, also successful, and she spent 2 summers working with the forensics department at the Modesto Police Department. When you walked into those classrooms, the content was the same, but the level of engagement of the students was radically different because one set of students had heard the stories of what this looked like in the field. They had stories of what it looked like to go to a crime scene and lay out all your markers and have the wind come up and blow everything away. And all of a sudden, the career piece of it became very real for them. And so phoning in your career piece doesn't really benefit you, and it certainly doesn't benefit your students. But as I tell the folks at the department, almost everybody in the arts has worked in the arts. Are there any of you who are teaching art classes who have never done any work in the content area that you're teaching? No, almost all of us have worked in the arts. And so for some, it's just about getting that additional currency. So you can get a CTE preliminary credential through one of the CTE programs that you see on the back, with the exception of Metro Ed, who is no longer running their program. And you can get your CTE credential at any of these programs. It does not have to be your local program. That's an important thing to know, because some of these programs will do what's called a transcript evaluation, where they will look at your transcript, and if you have a single subject credential, you have already had foundations of pedagogy. You have already had backgrounds of education. And so you don't need to take a full teacher preparation course in career technical education. Because teachers in career tech ed, despite what a lot of arts teachers think, do have to go through foundations of education. They do have to go through pedagogy preparation. They do, when you look at their program requirements from the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, they're the same thickness. They cover about the same information, okay? But instead of being taught through universities in the main, they have been taught through county offices and other outside providers. But you can go to any CTE credentialing provider, and so it's worth your while to call around, to find out who will do transcript eval, to find out how much the courses cost at in the different programs, because they're free to set their courses at any cost they want. Okay, who offers online courses, and who has the courses where you have to go in? If you have to go in, obviously your local program is going to be the one you want to go to. But if it's online, you can go through San Diego County Department of Ed if you live in Chico. Okay? Now, Butte County used to be a great example, because Butte County would do a transcript eval, and they would essentially say, pay the $75. You have everything you need as a single subject music teacher to teach a career tech ed music course. We have evaluated your industry experience, you have it, pay for the credential and you get it. But a lot of programs aren't like that. You can get that preliminary credential in a matter of weeks, okay? So it's not a long process. But clearing the credential will vary depending on what courses they identify that you need. So I think what I'd like to do now, since I'm not sure how much time we have left, a little bit, oh, we have 4 whole minutes. No, we have as much time as really you want to take to talk about the specific problems that you are dealing with. We have a CTE teacher in dance in the room, and so I may ask Tiffany to respond to some of these questions. How many of you are single subject teachers and also have your CTE credential? Okay. So I'd like to hear your questions, and some of them I might be able to answer, but what I'm more likely to do is write them down and take them back and get back to you with an answer. Yes?
So if I've worked at theater companies, what's the best way to verify that information?
Contact the theater company.
Right.
Let them know when you worked, and have them write a letter stating that I worked for X numbers of hours at such and such theater company.
Is it okay to call them and say, I'll draft the letter for you and send it to them? And then
Yes.
they can sign it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And LA Unified actually has a template for exactly what they want to see on the letter. Because I'm going through that right now, and you just basically fill in the blanks and send it to your person and have them sign it. Right.
And they
Okay.
don't want anything added to it, like they don't want to know what a wonderful person you are.
No, just
No.
very
They just want to know work
Right.
this number of hours, this amount of time,
Right.
that's it. That's all it has to be.
And it would be really good if CTC had a form, but I'm not aware of any form. So it really is letter by letter. Yes.
I had worked for an interior design firm for like 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
but now I've been teaching for 25 years. So I was told that you had to have recent.
Okay, there is a recency rule, and depending on the program that you're going through, they are more or less strict about recency. Recency is important in career technical education because things change really rapidly. When I was an actor, I sent out resumes. Actors don't send out headshots and resumes so much anymore. They refer you to their website. Now, all of them should understand headshots and resumes, but that's not current industry practice. And so there are a couple of things that I would suggest to you if this has become a problem. And one is an externship. contact an organization now, or that same organization, if you still know people in it, but they probably changed, and say, I'm interested in doing an externship this summer in your organization. If your district has Perkins funds can pay for that externship. They can pay you hours for doing that externship to satisfy your recency. And again, this is a one-on-one conversation that you need to have with that credentialing program. You're saying that my information, that my work experience isn't recent enough. Will you accept an externship to bring me up to speed with where industry practice is now? And they can say yes or no, but again, it's a matter of making your case. And if they say no, then I would contact another program. But that recency is an issue. I've talked to program directors, though, who said, we don't really care. If in fact there haven't been major changes in that industry, then the recency requirement we're not going to spend a lot of time with.
Well, I was gonna ask you, because does it all have to be, because I went to the New York Film School and did that, a week-long thing with them where you talk to producers and do all that, and I teach photography. I taught crime scene photography, so I did ride-alongs with the police, I went to all the forensic.
Those all go towards your hours.
So even if they're in like little different types
Sure,
of.
it doesn't really
So
matter
if I
where.
did interior
Where there's
design,
going to be an issue is if it was in an educational setting. So if, for example, you took a course and that course was taught by a professional, that's not considered industry experience, that's educational experience.
What about
but-
if you taught at a college?
If you teach at a college, then that's that same 1 year that you can get for teaching at a high school, whether it's a high school or college, it doesn't matter. Yes, Shane?
Jack, our issue is that our county office personnel are reviewing the verification of industry experience. Those personnel have no experience in any of the A&E fields.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they keep pushing things back, saying this is not industry expertise. And we say, yes, it is.
Okay.
So it's a non-expert reviewing at the county level before they're sending it to CTE.
Right.
And then it takes 4 months to get the license instead of 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, the best thing to do with that is to contact either me or they can contact Roxanne Purdue at the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and they will only be able to leave her a voicemail because if you've called the commission, they don't pick up the phone. But either one of us can get in touch with whoever the individual is. In this case, we need to know the specifics. Who at your county office is making those decisions? And then, because that way I can call them and ask them if they need some assistance in verifying what industry hours look like in arts, media, and entertainment. Because very often that's the case, is that they just really don't know. Yes?
Right, and so I have a couple teachers and an artist who's very project oriented, so having artwork on display, being part of a local artist group, guild and so forth, but it might take 20 hours to produce an art, or a musician here who's practiced and practiced and practiced for that hour performance. So I'm gonna assume that all that preparation is part of that industry experience, and then how is it,
I would put that down
yeah.
if I was applying for a credential. And it's up to the program. Again, up until a couple of years ago when the rules changed a little bit, county offices weren't like they are now. I mean, they would look at those those industry experience pieces and not have a problem with it. But I would say that in the past 5 years, they've become much more diligent, they think, about looking at your industry experience. And there are county offices who, if you do the work at the school, their initial response will be that that's not industry experience. I mean, I had a teacher who literally created all of the graphics for their school. Any print material that they sent out, that they sent to parents. And they were paid to do that. And I had Perkins people go out and say, that's not valid industry experience, that's in an educational setting. And I said, no, it's for education, but they were a professional creating product for another organization. and that qualifies as industry experience. Yes?
So, looking at the agency's education, is one that my county is not listed on here.
Okay.
And so when I have teachers, I'm in an administrative position, so when I have teachers contacting, let's say, like San Joaquin County is probably the closest to me.
Mm-hmm. San Joaquin County, I believe, is one where you actually have to go there. I think they have a credentialing program that is like a college program, and they hold classes and teachers need to attend. If you're close enough to do that, my understanding is the program is an excellent program. But if you're not close enough to do that, then I would have them look to another county office. Yes?
So what does that county office have to do?
They have to be approved by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and just like a program that's approved to provide a visual arts credential or a mathematics credential, they have program guidelines that they submit to the CTC. CTC evaluates whether or not their program meets the credentialing guidelines. If they do, then they're certified to offer the CTE credential. Yes? It's similar to what you would have to do if you have an emergency credential in any other content area. You have to take coursework, and depending on the program that you're enrolled in, that coursework can be online, and in some cases it has to be on site. But almost all of the programs now, because profitability, as I mentioned, became an issue, almost all of those programs are offering the CTE completion coursework online. But the only other thing you need to do is to continue to teach, okay? Designated subject credential?
We're working with special, like the ELD stuff, the class.
Oh, okay, class.
So if you have a class, you still have to take the cleared classes?
Yeah, you still have to clear your credential, and almost all of the CTE credentialing programs now require you to meet that CLAD requirement. They didn't used to, but they do now. Yes?
I'm a music officer,
Mhm.
teacher, but I've been asked for my district to take over audiovisual, we're doing audiovisual production.
Okay.
So they've asked me to, I have experience working with, doing my own sound, mixing my own sound, and I've done simple recordings, but I don't know how I can kind of translate. I'd like to augment that to actually get the CTE credentialing in sound engineering specifically.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that you need to find somewhere to externship. Where are you located?
In San Bernardino.
In San Bernardino. Find a production company that's willing to let you come in and sit in, and then we'll write a letter for you saying that Javier spent X number of hours with me.
Like the 1,000 out, like
It's daunting. So you have to be as creative as possible. Anything that you have that qualifies as professional.
I've done sound for friends and everything. I don't know.
Well, and even if you do the sound engineering for yourself, if you are a professional musician, or for churches are a great place. A lot of people get video production training at churches. First AME Church in Los Angeles has probably one of the best video production studios in the city. So, right, church counts, right. Other questions?
What if you had your own business, like you had your own photography business?
Okay, if you had a business, then you file taxes, right? Those taxes are proof of employment. Okay, other questions?
What about what about being a tour director for students? Or, is that still count as educational capacity? It's not,
Well, what kind of tour?
like taking students to festival or taking students.
No, those don't count as professional experiences. Okay. Other questions? The superintendent's coming and I have to meet him, so. I thought Tiffany was meeting him and then I see, so I think Chris is. Thank you guys very much. And please get in touch with me if you have problems, because this is what I'm paid to do.